In this offseason that just refuses to sleep, we have yet another trade. This time between the Toronto Blue Jays and the Arizona Diamondbacks. Toronto is sending catcher Gabriel Moreno and outfielder Lourdes Gurriel Jr. to Arizona in exchange for outfielder catcher Daulton Varsho. So, alright, let's get into this one. This is Smarter Baseball, where we deep dive into everything going on throughout Major League Baseball. If you enjoy the content and want to support the channel, like the video, subscribe to the page, and turn on notifications. Be a part of the foundation of what we're building here as we start to blow this thing up. So we have Toronto receiving 26-year-old outfielder / catcher Daulton Varsho from Arizona, who in exchange gets 23-year-old catcher Gabriel Moreno and 29-year-old outfielder Lourdes Gurriel Jr. So first, let's start with what Toronto is getting in this deal. So the 26-year-old Varsho isn't set for free agency until 2027. And so far throughout 283 games in the majors, he holds a slash line of 234, 306, 432. That's good for a 738 OPS and a 103 OPS plus, a 101 WRC plus, and he's built up 6.7 baseball reference WAR and 7.1 F WAR in roughly about 3 short seasons. He's built up his numbers each of these 3 years so far, and 2022, his best year yet, 151 games with a 235, 302, 443 slash line, 27 home runs, a 745 OPS, was good for a 109 OPS plus, 106 WRC plus, and he racked up 4.9 baseball reference WAR and 4.6 F WAR, which again, 5 WAR in a season is about all-star level, so just underneath that. Now, knowing these numbers is all well and good, but it doesn't give us the full picture of Varsho as a player, so let's dive just a little bit deeper. He's a guy that makes quality contact pretty consistently, given his 70th percentile barrel rate this season, and he tries to maximize this by mainly sticking to pulling the ball and hitting it in the air, given that his pull and fly ball percentages are both noticeably above average this season. Now, normally those type of hitters are your real big power kind of guys, and we saw the 27 home runs, and he's got the track record of that power throughout the minors. We just didn't really see it this season specifically. His exit velo and hard hit percentage were both 25th percentile, but his home runs per fly ball are almost double that of the league average, so it's maybe still in there, but as we get into this stuff with his approach, maybe there's a lot that we can still do to bring that out more consistently. So let's talk about that approach, where his 27th percentile strikeout rate has a lot of room for improvement, to go along with the fact that his walk rate and chase rate were both below average as well, mainly because he's up there swinging quite a bit. So maybe if he was a little bit more selective, we would see not only this approach stuff, but all of his numbers take a noticeable jump forward. Now, while he's still developing offensively, there's not a lot he needs to work on defensively. His outs above average was in the 99th percentile to go along with a 97th percentile outfielder's jump. And if there's one thing limiting him out there, his arm is in the 45th percentile, so just a little bit below average, but that's still probably fine if he's out in left field, maybe center. And to go along with this, he boasts a 69th percentile sprint speed, and his stolen base percentage is right around average, but he's pretty good at swiping that extra base on situations like going first to third or second to home, showed by his extra bases taken percentage. So now let's talk what Arizona is getting. And first, we'll talk about Moreno, the 23-year-old catcher, who throughout the minors, 253 games, boasted a 310, 365, 479 slash line, good for a 844 OPS and 27 home runs. Moreno mainly is a guy that's gonna put the ball in play, so he's definitely not gonna strike out, but he's also not gonna walk a ton based on these numbers in the minors, where he also showed some flashes of some power, given a 9.4 homers per fly ball and .169 ISO, which are both just a little bit above MLB league average this season. He had a pretty small stint in the majors this year. In 25 games, hitting .319, .356, .377 for a .733 OPS with 1 home run, a .111 OPS plus, and .113 WRC plus, where, again, he just showed off that hit tool. His whiff rate of 19.7% is 5% lower than the league average. So this dude is gonna put the bat to the ball. One glaring difference between his time in the minors and when he was up with the major league club this season is in the minors, he was primarily a fly ball hitter, but in his time with the Blue Jays this season, his ground ball percentage was noticeably above average, and he pretty much was hitting the ball middle away. So being a little bit more of like a slap hitter, just using that contact ability. And again, we maybe saw some glimpses of there being some power in there. His exit velo was a tick above league average, but given, and we'll get into this with his approach, I think given how he goes up and handles an at-bat, we see that he relies more on this contact stuff, so the barrel percentage was half of league average, and the hard hit and homers per fly ball were noticeably below. So now let's get into how he approaches an at-bat, where, again, the dude is just gonna refuse to strike out. His strikeout percentage this year was less than half of MLB average, but it's the way that he does this means that he's gonna sacrifice getting some walks as well, because while he's not a total free swinger, he's not seeing a whole lot of pitches per plate appearance, so he's just jumping on something earlier in a count, putting bat to ball like we have seen that he can do really well, and that's gonna prevent him from striking out a ton, but then he's not gonna work counts, so he's not gonna get a whole lot of walks either. And now defensively, his pop time was in the 89th percentile in baseball, so the dude's gonna throw out some base stealers. But then I guess it's not really gonna matter a whole lot when inevitably we get robo-umps here. But if there's one thing that he could improve on, at least that we could find with this catching, it's more of the framing stuff, where his framing runs, according to Baseball Savant, would have had him tied for 28th in baseball, and his strike rate would have had him tied for 51st. Arizona's also getting 29-year-old outfielder Lourdes Gurriel Jr., who is set to hit free agency in 2025. 468 games so far in his career. He holds a .285, .329, .468 slash line with 68 home runs. That's good for a .797 OPS and a .117 OPS plus, a .115 WRC plus, and he's built up 8.0 baseball reference WAR and 6.2 FWAR. His 2022 season consisted of 121 games with a .291, .343, .400 slash line, and 5 home runs. That's good for a .743 OPS and a .113 OPS plus, a .114 WRC plus, and he built up 2.2 BWAR and 1 FWAR. So now for Gurriel as a player. He struggled this year to make quality contact, only having a barrel percentage down in the 12th percentile, but he's your classic just put bat to ball, slap it the other way if you have to type of hitter. 71st percentile in whiff rate to go along with a noticeably higher line drive percentage and hitting the ball to the opposite field noticeably more than your average player. Despite him being this type of hitter, the dude still boasts some pretty good power. Exit velo at 80th percentile, hard hit percentage at 79th percentile, and his 14.4 homers per fly ball is noticeably above the league average. And again, this is a dude that's not gonna strike out at all, but that's again pretty much because he's not gonna walk either, because he's up there to swing and swing early. So he's just gonna put bat to ball, which he does all around really well, but he's kind of taken more what the pitcher's giving him rather than really picking his spots. Defensively is a bit of a different story for Gurriel, where his outs above average was in the 26th percentile and his outfielder's jump was in the 17th. So he's not a good fielder, but the dude at least has a cannon with 74th percentile arm rating. And as far as his running ability, there's not a whole lot here either. The 48th percentile sprint speed's not bad, but 43% stolen bases and 36% extra bases taken are both noticeably below average. So now, what is each team really getting in return, and why are they making this deal? first, let's just talk about basically the teams are swapping outfielders here in Varsho and Gurriel, which Varsho, as far as offensively, again, you're going to get some of that in-game power, but mainly that's because he's just trying to hit the ball in the air and yank it, despite the fact that some of the underlying power numbers show that maybe he shouldn't be trying to do that. When you pair that with the improvements that he needs in his approach, if Toronto maybe makes him a little bit more well-rounded, you're going to see a lot better results than what he showed so far. For Gurriel, you're talking about a guy that's got a really good swing. All of the contact power numbers, all of that are pretty outstanding, but it's a dude that, again, is maybe a little bit too over-aggressive, and that kind of comes back to bite him in how much he gets to really maximize that swing. So now with Toronto specifically, they're getting 2 more years of team control out of Varsho than they would have with Gurriel. And Varsho is, he's an outstanding fielder, and let's just say Gurriel's not, to go along with the fact that Varsho's a pretty good runner too, whereas Gurriel really isn't. And they're probably betting on some of the untouched upside that this guy still has, given that he was a former number 76 overall prospect in baseball. Now, Toronto's outfield this season offensively was pretty good, holding a slash line of 262, 317, 424 for a 741 OPS, a 112 WRC+, and in general, they ranked 9th in Fangraphs WAR. Where they had the room for improvement though, and probably why they go get Varsho, is their fielding, where they had negative defensive runs and were 27th in UZR per 150, to go along with being ranked 18th in outs and runs above average. So if they had room to improve, they could sacrifice a little bit of the hitting to get some fielding. What's a little bit curious about this though, is that they already kind of did this by trading away Teoscar Hernandez and getting Kevin Kiermaier. So I guess they're like doubling down on that. So now for Arizona, the obvious main piece here is Moreno. They get their catcher of the future, a high contact guy, maybe a little bit over aggressive, and if they can kind of rein that in, have him pick and choose his spots more and use and develop the power that is probably in there, this guy could be an all-around really good hitter. To go along with the fact that, again, framing might not matter all that much here in a second, but the dude does have an insanely good pop time, so he's gonna limit the amount of base running going on as well. Now, when I say this filled a need for Arizona, I'm not bullshitting. They literally were worse because of their catchers this last season. Negative 0.3 FWAR, that ranked them 25th in baseball. They had a 63 WRC+, which again, 100 is average, and you do not want to be below that. And normally, when a catcher or catching group is bad offensively, you think that's because then they're really good defensively. But now they sucked at that too. 25th in defensive runs saved and framing runs, and Fangraphs had their defense rated 20th in all of baseball. And now talking about the outfielder swap, Arizona outfielders hit 234, 301, 407 for a 708 OPS and a 97 WRC+. So they were just about below average offensively, but were still 6th in Fangraphs WAR last season with 10.3. That was because of their defense, where their defensive run saved was 3rd, and then they were 1st in UZR per 150, outs above average, and runs above average. So if they had anything to give, it was defense in the outfield. So getting a guy like Gurriel actually kind of helps balance out this outfield a little bit. They have plenty of room to sacrifice the defense, and offensively, he's unquestionably was better this season than Varsho was. We'll see how that plays out over the long run, but he can add in offensively and really, like I said, balance this outfield out a little bit. And the one thing I keep coming back to with this trade is, if you're Toronto, you already brought in Kiermaier to be a defensive guy for you out there. But offensively, you traded away Teoscar Hernandez, and Springer kind of has the tendency to get hurt a little bit. So you would think that you can't keep giving away all of this offense. But now you're trading Gurriel away, and a high catching prospect just for more defense with the hopes that he becomes something offensively or taps into that. Like, that just doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me, that you would give up extra value to get defense back in exchange for offense. So I'm clearly a little confused on this, so drop a comment down below and let me know, what do you think about this trade? Who's the clear winner here? And if you were a GM of either of the teams, would you have made this move? Comment down below, let me know. Thank you as always for watching and supporting the channel. If you want to be a part of what we're building here as we head to 500 subscribers and even further beyond that, drop a like on the video, subscribe to the page, and turn on notifications so that you can help the channel grow and you can be a part of this channel as we build this thing up as high as we can get it to go. Thanks again for watching and supporting. I hope you enjoyed it. Hope you have an awesome day, and I'll see you in the next one when some other crazy ass batshit thing happens in about 2 days. Merry Christmas.